Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome back to our channel once again. And it is my hope and prayer that the video is going to find you guys in good health. Personally, I am fine, as you can see. Kisumu is fantastic. And maybe you could also let me know where you're watching the video from. The county or the country, in case you are out of the republic. Ladies and gentlemen, earlier this week, Jimmy Wanjigi was on Citizen TV, where he was interviewed by none other than Yvonne Okwara.
Stand with the protests. Do you support the Gen Z led?
101%. 101%. I support them. I support what they are doing. I think along the way, if you go through some of my clips from September, October last year, I've been saying it's going to happen. It was bound to happen because Kenyans are in pain. I support them 100%. It's in the Constitution. It's their democratic right. And yes, I have supported them financially. I gave them money when they were in bond. I have supported the supply of flags and water and all those things. Why not? I'm sure I'm not the only Kenyan who did it, right? Because it's not against the law, right? I don't think they asked for any other support. I think people are looking for ghosts here.
And Jimmy Wanjigi said so many things during that particular interview.
William Ruto came to assault my family. He can pretend all he wants in church, as my wife says, that he's a Christian. But what his policemen did, because he cannot feign ignorance of the fact that they were in my home, I know he knows. I knew he was even being informed. They came to wreak havoc and assault my family. It was armed robbery. It was assault. They have broken nearly everything you can think of in that home. We have no lights. We're struggling to put them back. They destroyed, they stole money, they stole jewelry. They even stole from my staff, from their wallets. This was an assault. It had nothing to do with the law, looking for Jimmy. It was to do the maximum damage they could to my home and to my family.
All right.
But in this particular video, I want us to focus on one aspect of Jimmy Wanjigi's interview, where he talked of the removal of William Samoei Arap Ruto from the presidency. And I want to ask you this simple question. Do you think Jimmy Wanjigi can actually remove William Ruto from office?
That
Ruto must go is a clarion call even in my heart. He must go. William Samoei Ruto cannot solve problems that he has helped create. He cannot. God will never even bless him with that. If you had the brain, you'd never have created them in the first place. He has created such problems in this country to do with money, to do with the economy of this nation. And I can tell you he's compounding it. He cannot solve it. He's part of the last wreck that has happened in the previous regime, and he's creating even more mess now. He cannot solve it. Every day William Ruto is in power, I want Kenyans to know, it is more and more pain. He has no solution to this.
So how, because you have a copy of the Constitution of Kenya there, how would you propose he leaves office?
He should resign like yesterday. And his government should resign. Rigathi Gachagua should resign. The speaker was already cancelled by Gen Z when they went to the floor. They, under Article 1, already took back that house called Parliament. And on the following Thursday, they were going to take back State House, which meant the people have taken back power as Article 1 of the Constitution. And it must be clear to everybody, the Constitution is not above the people. The people are above the Constitution.
Can Jimmy Wanjigi remove William Ruto from office? That is the question which most Kenyans are currently asking. Because remember, you can remove the president from office legally through only two ways. The first way is through impeachment, which is well articulated in Article 145 of our Constitution. And the grounds are also very clear. For example, gross violation of our Constitution, crime under national or international law, or gross misconduct, which I don't think William Ruto has violated any of those. And the second way you can remove the president is via the ballot. which means if Ruto has to be removed today because he was sworn in office, then he can only be removed again, according to our constitution, in 2027. And of course, you can also remove the president through illegal means. For example, the protest, which the agencies staged, can easily remove a president. You can pile pressure on a president until he decides to leave, just like it happened in Bangladesh and other parts of the world. That can happen. But I doubt if, after the Gen Z protests cooled down, I doubt if William Ruto can succumb to that kind of pressure. And the second illegal means of removing the president from office is via a coup, which has been happening in Africa. But I doubt if that can happen in the Republic of Kenya today. So in this video, I want us to look at whether Jimmy Wanjigi can actually remove William Ruto from office and the methods he can use. But before you do that, in case you're watching this channel for the first time, please take a second or two, click the subscribe button so that next time we produce a video like this, YouTube will automatically notify you. And to the subscribers, I want to continue thanking you guys for your continued support, because without that support, this channel cannot be where it is. And for this particular video, kindly just press for me the thumbs up button, and if you can, drop your comments. And again, allow me to also take this opportunity to introduce you guys to Lemfi. Lemfi is a mobile money app for users in the UK, Canada, and the United States of America to send money back to Kenya. They offer the best exchange rates, and the money will be delivered instantly into your M-Pesa account, Airtel Money account, and of course, if you want, directly into your bank account. You can use the link in the pinned comment to download the app. Ladies and gentlemen, let us dive in. First of all, let us try to figure out what motivated Jimmy Wanjigi to issue or to speak the way he spoke, to suggest that there is need to remove William Ruto from office even before 2027. What do you think motivated him? For me, the statement by Jimmy Wanjigi was motivated by the following factors. Number one, the rage against William Samoei Arap Ruto. The truth of the matter is that Kenyans are very bitter and angry with the president. And the Gen Zs escalated the rage against the president. So I think because of that rage, Jimmy Wanjigi just thought that it would, okay, talking about removing Ruto from office would be exciting. Number two, the state of the economy is doing so badly. Jimmy Wanjigi understands the state of our economy. If you followed that interview, you will agree that Jimmy Wanjigi is a very smart politician. He understands the economy. What I'm not sure about is if Kenyans decide today to give him the presidency, whether he will be able to deliver. He understands the state of economy, that the economy is actually collapsing.
Now, I want to tell you that they have an essence of my capacity. They have an essence of who I am. And there's one thing you need to understand in politics and in leadership. You know who your competition is. You know it in your gut, especially when you're up there. You know it in your gut where your competition is, where your problem is, who can remove you. You know it in your gut. There's one thing I do understand, this country. I understand it, I feel it, I live it, I know it, and they know I know it. You asked me an earlier question. Why would they kill you? In these incidents of William Ruto, because I'd like to come here, I want you to understand there are two pillars of any government. There's the pillar of guns, and even the MOU I did with them was based on that. The pillar of guns and the pillar of money. Without those, a government cannot operate. All right? Those are the two pillars. A gun to protect people, to protect them, to protect money. And money to buy those guns. That is the essence of any government anywhere.
And because of the fear of the collapse of economy, it's easier to talk about removing Ruto from office. And of course, the fact is, Kenya Kwanza has also failed, which means most Kenyans currently don't want anything to do with Kenya Kwanza. And lastly, I also strongly believe that maybe Jimmy Wanjigi was just courting attention. There is something which also happened before this interview, when the police raided Jimmy Wanjigi's home on the last day of the Gen Z's protest. For me, I've always believed that maybe Jimmy Wanjigi staged that raid because he wanted the limelight from the Gen Zs to focus on him. Because I've been asking myself, I avoided that analysis because Jimmy Wanjigi is a smart guy, but something was not adding up. For example, if the police were looking for Jimmy Wanjigi, he disappeared, he could not be found. The next day, were they told not to look for Jimmy Wanjigi? Because the next day, Jimmy Wanjigi was out and he was dancing with his lawyer, and Jimmy Wanjigi is walking free. Yeah, so I always believe that siege in his house, probably the government wanted just to hype Jimmy Wanjigi. You know, in politics is a very dirty game. Politics is a very dirty game. If the police wanted Jimmy Wanjigi, they would have gotten him. But I don't want to get into that for now. For those who believe that the police wanted to arrest him, you can believe. For me, I'm still figuring out other factors. But can Jimmy Wanjigi remove Ruto, or can William Ruto be removed from office? And what are the factors which might actually stop Wanjigi and the group from trying to remove William Ruto from office? Number one, there's the question of who is going to take over if William Ruto is removed from office. You see, the Gen Z's protest were almost succeeding. I'm not saying in removing Ruto, but they were almost succeeding. But it reached a point where Kenyans were now asking, they had questions, that in the event that William Ruto decides to leave office, who was going to take over? That was a very important topic. And the government realized that most Kenyans were not comfortable with Rigathi Gachagua taking over. So they started, the government through their propaganda, started that narrative in Nyanza here, in ODM strongholds, that, you know, Ruto akitoka, who comes in? Rigathi Gachagua. Of course, the Gen Zs were quick enough to say they don't want both Rigathi Gachagua and William Ruto to go. And another question arose. Who takes over? The Speaker of the National Assembly. And for how long? 90 days. And I remember so well that the question at that time was that if Ruto and Gachagua were to go, then the Speaker was to take over for 90 days. Who was going to preside over the elections? Again, there is no IEBC. So those are some of the things which slowed down the Gen Z's protest. I doubt if Jimmy Wanjigi can actually tell Kenyans that we want Ruto to go, and is going, who is going to take over? Nani is going also with Rigathi. Who is going to take over? Okay, Speaker will take over for 90 days. After that, or the military rule. So because of that aspect, most Kenyans are not going to support that move. They'd rather stick with William Ruto until the ballot. Of course, you also know that in Kenya, we have a very big problem. And the big problem is that most people are surviving on hand to mouth. So you sustain protests like for 3 days, kila mtu ikonja. They start looting, they become popular. You know. Number two, Jimmy Wanjigi, who is pushing for that call, is not commanding enough support. You can't say that Jimmy Wanjigi has supporters who can decide and follow him. He doesn't have that. And because he doesn't have support, there is no way he can initiate the removal of the president. For you to remove the president, you must have serious following, fanatical following. Jimmy Wanjigi is good on TV, and Kenyans will always be glued to their TV to listen to him oozing wisdom. And that's it. But when now it comes to real politics, they even question his source of wealth. Some of them even question so many things about him. For example, the fact that he's one of the guys who supported this government. It's a question which is being raised. Actually, that is my third point. The fact that Jimmy Wanjigi supported and voted for William Ruto and now is the one talking loudly against Kenya Kwanza is something which is not sitting well with those who supported Raila Odinga, who wanted William Ruto out of office, because you can only remove him out of office from the ballot. Then you here, you supported him. After supporting him, he failed. Then you now want to remove him for what? And lastly, I also believe that in the Republic of Kenya, there is a general lack of strategy by the opposition. If opposition in Kenya had a clear strategy, probably they would have forced William Ruto out of office. But there's no strategy. Again, if you ask me, even in parliament, I doubt if Jimmy Wanjigi can persuade members of parliament to vote to impeach William Ruto, because that's another alternative, voting to impeach, which cannot happen. So for me, I think Jimmy Wanjigi engaged Kenyans just in rhetorics. They can do nothing to remove William Ruto from office. And my advice has always been that William Ruto is definitely the easiest president to remove from office in 2027. The easiest. Because the hustler narrative is dead. The state of economy is doing poorly. William Ruto is not going to initiate, Kenya Kwanza government, let me put it that way, it's not going to initiate any development project between now and 2027. We're just going to see the drama where William Ruto is going to open a bread in someone's house or a posho mill somewhere. Nothing. And of course, with a good strategy, Gen Zs can be asked to register as voters, and it will be easy to remove William Ruto from office. But unless there is a strategy. I don't know what you think. That's my take. Until next time, this is Lee Makwiny. Bye-bye.